Our next conversation is going to be, this is another public interest conversation. End of March is coming. The Kenya Revenue Authority told us, March, please, everybody, try and get onto eTIMS. What is eTIMS? Electronics Tax Invoice Management System. We hosted the boss of eTIMS at KRA here a couple of weeks ago, and she told us, we're working on things, we're taking feedback from the public, we're seeing what they're saying, we're making things work so that it can function for everybody. Today, there have been some complaints that we've seen, people telling us, please, can you tell those KRA people to come and tell you, because, hey, things are not working, particularly last week on the 20th, when everybody was trying to file for their VAT returns. What? Things happened. And that's why she's here. Hakamba Wangwe is the manager in charge of eTIMS at the Kenya Revenue Authority. Hakamba, good morning.
Morning to you, Eric.
Good to have you back here.
Thank you. I'm also pleased to be here again.
Salimiandu.
Jambo.
Si jambo.
Very good.
Thank you.
She always asks, what do you mean by si jambo?
Yeah, I just know.
What does si jambo mean?
It's just sina jambo, but it's short of sina neno. So you just say si jambo, just to reduce the time you are responding to a greeting.
Okay.
Yeah.
In all the years that I've been asking that question, you guys have never made it so clear.
Sindio?
Yeah.
You never get it. You just never get it.
Explanation of what it means.
It's
Hopefully
like
the eTIMS will be just as clear as that.
Simple, straightforward.
Yes.
I tell you, it's like what they say in Hausa. Gotire bosho nage. Gotire bosho nage. That is Hausa.
The Hausa for Ndunduru.
Okay. Karibu sana. Okay. So I'm going to welcome you with the day's proverb. As you can see, CT is not here today.
Okay.
He's trying to get his eTIMS sorted.
It might take a whole day. It's a whole day affair, clearly.
Before the deadline. Because he was here and he kept telling, I'm doing 2. And then it says tururu. So he told him, you go get it sorted. I have the day's proverb. This week the proverbs are from Mauritius.
Okay.
And the proverb for today is, when the head is too big, it cannot dodge blows.
Okay. When the head is too big, basically, I think for me, I'm going to take from the angle of the surface area. The head is big, and why it can't dodge blows. In Kiswahili, they say hata kama mtu hana shabaha. When they aim at that head because it's big, they should not miss. Now that's the literal meaning. Now when we go to the definition of it, basically, if you're doing something that is impactful, it can be negative, it can be positive. You're just affecting maybe society or affecting other people, then you stand criticized, or you will be judged, or there'll be a lot of noise. I think a good example is eTIMS. I think it's a very good example.
eTIMS has a very big head.
It's a very big head, and it cannot. It getting the blows that it is getting means that it's having an impact on all of us, and it's something that maybe we're going to talk about today. But yes, a big head that is eTIMS.
There are people who think it's blocking their way to prosperity, and that's why they're trying to stone it.
Can't see the front because this big head is in the way.
They're trying to stone it.
Yeah.
Okay, let's start from the very basics. And we'll be opening up the phone lines in the next hour, but we also want to pick all the questions, comments, complaints. If you want to throw a fit at Hakamba. She's here to take all the blows. You can post all the comments and questions on our social media as well, at SpiceFMKE on YouTube, on Facebook, on X, on Instagram. Let's engage on this particular one. Take us to the very beginning. eTIMS. Where did this come from and what is it?
Okay, so today I'm going to have a different definition of eTIMS for the record. So eTIMS is not a tax. eTIMS is a tool that we are using to collect information. The last time when I was here, I talked about eTIMS being a solution that is helping us transmit transaction data from the trader premises to KRA. Today I find it important to say it is also not a tax. The same way, right now, the traders are already maintaining records of their sales and purchases. What we are asking is that the records of sales and purchases to be passed through eTIMS.
Okay.
So in a nutshell, that's what it is.
Okay. How different is it from what we've been doing before?
It's automated. Now we are using technology. Before, up to last year, if we, for example, we had to come for an audit at your premises or a compliance check, we were okay with seeing the manual receipts, the cash sale receipts, when we are looking at how you came up with your income tax liability or VAT liability. But now we are moving to a space where this information is availed to KRA through a technology that is eTIMS, so that we have visibility of this transaction details in advance, even before we make a decision whether you need to be audited or we need to conduct a compliance check. We already have the information that is guiding us to tell us whether or not we should go that direction, because we have the information that we can use to verify your tax liability with in advance from our premises without coming to disturb you on the ground.
Okay.
Yeah.
You know, we started with the electronic tax registers. Okay. Those gadgets that were bought, and every transaction, then you had to go and input, and it generates a receipt. Then it said, let's connect these ones electronically, and you can now connect it to the system, so it sends the information to KRA. I thought you already had that and it was working.
It was working for a few. When you look at it, with the focus of Teams, we had focused, that was Teams. Now when we connected it to the internet, it was for only VAT registered taxpayers. But then, as I mentioned the last time, with a consideration from the feedback that we are receiving from the public, we had to scale down and consider having the free software for the lower end taxpayers who are VAT registered still, so that they could use eTIMS also, so that now those ones who are in the VAT space either could use the TIMS devices, or they could have a free software installed on their communication devices, or they could have the credentials to log into the KRA system, especially those ones who are doing services for purposes of generating invoices. But then now, with the Finance Act 2023, we opened that space. It's not now limited to VAT registered taxpayers. Now it's open for taxpayers who are not registered for VAT. That means anyone who has business income, if he's a resident or he or she is a resident, or is a non-resident with permanent establishment, now they also need to onboard and now use eTIMS. Now these ones don't have room in Teams, because Teams we limited it to VAT. Now they all need to be on eTIMS. When I came here last, I think I mentioned that we were also thinking of scaling down once again, because from the feedback we received, some of the taxpayers felt even eTIMS is too complex for some demography of our public. So we went back again, and we've worked, honestly, very hard. And right now we have the eCitizen platform hosting an electronic tax invoicing solution. We have a USSD solution. As we speak, there's a mobile app. We are completing the modalities of having it hosted. We have to meet some requirements on the Play Store. So that's what is being worked on, and within this week we should have it hosted on the Google Play Store. So now we would have those three solutions available for taxpayers who feel perhaps the other solutions are a bit complex, and these ones are actually very simple. And as we speak, for example, the eCitizen platform is being used by over 26,000 taxpayers, and these are really, when you look at the statistics, so what we are seeing, they're supplying to the retail outlets. So what you call mama mboga, wale wanapeleka skuma, tomatoes, vegetables to our retail outlets, the supermarkets. Right now, there are some supermarkets who really worked hard and had their vendors on board, and they are using that solution very effectively. Okay. Yeah.
So let's look at it practically. So when you log on to, obviously you're downloading an application onto your device, right? So once you do that and you log in, what then are you required to do at the point of purchase or at the point of invoice? What are you required to do now that is different from what you would do before with the receipt that you get off of, what was it? The old
ETR.
system, ETR, right? So what are you required to do now on eTIMS as a vendor, for example? Me who is saying, I am selling handkerchiefs and this is what I require you to pay. What am I then required to do? And then let's go through that for the person who also is paying later.
Okay, so this depends on the solution you're actually on, because if you're looking at, for example, I talked about the online portal, and I mentioned that this is being used by those people who are specifically transacting in services. So we'd have our legal teams, you'd have our accountants working on the online portal. So what they need to do really, the first thing, as you sign up, you need to register. You need to say what you do, so that we can we are not allowing everyone to use the online portal. So once we can verify and see that you are strictly on services, then we allow you to get credentials from the system, and then you can go to invoicing.
Okay, what are services?
Services. Services, it means you don't have goods. You're not moving any goods. So you're a business. You're
a consultancy.
Consultancy.
Okay.
You are an accountant. You're not selling tea, mandazi. You're not selling any goods.
Okay.
So that one, we allow you to onboard that one.
Why?
Because we actually reducing it. You're logging in directly to the KRA system.
So the iTax system?
Directly to the KRA system. While it has a component of the stock management module, we would not like to load it with so much information, because we'd like it to be used by the ones who are transacting in services, so that we can maintain the system performance.
Okay.
So the ones who have goods, now we segregate them. We have them have the software installed on their devices, because now they need to run, especially for VAT registered taxpayers, they need to maintain a stock record, the inventory control. So that one it's more accommodating to them, and it allows them to feed in as much information as possible.
Okay, and where is this? Where are they logging on?
These ones are on eTIMS. They're on eTIMS directly, the KRA system.
Okay.
That now if you're logging into eTIMS, basically, if you need to sign up, for example, you'd need to start from eTIMS at kra.go.ke. So those ones are working directly on eTIMS. Okay. Now there's the third category who the simplified solutions are very, very simple. For example, they don't have the stock management module for those who don't have VAT, non-VAT taxpayers, and the smaller taxpayers, we've said all we need to do is the sales management aspect of it. So if you have credentials for eCitizen, for example, many people you've logged in there before, maybe to do this and that, you use the same credentials. But then if you want to go to the KRA services directly, now it's ecitizen.kra.go.ke. It takes you directly to the KRA services. You see the eTIMS invoice. First of all, again, you have to identify yourself, so that it also checks from our database whether you even have business or not. And then you can generate your invoice. It's a very simple process that you go through. You need to enter PIN, for example. You need to enter the description of the supply you want to do, the amount that is, or the quantity, what you are supplying. And then you enter, if you want that invoice sent to that person, you just enter the email address, and it can be sent directly. You don't have to print it. The same platform maintains a record of all the supplies that you've generated during that time. If it's sales, you have the sales records, you have the purchases. Anywhere where you've made a purchase and you've given your PIN, you'll always find it in your record, so that when it comes to filing returns, you already know the transactions that you have carried out to that time.
Excuse me. You have so many platforms now.
Yes.
Already there is the iTax platform.
Yes.
And now there's an eTIMS platform. Then there's the eCitizen platform.
Then the USSD.
There's a USSD platform.
Yes.
Okay. Now, it doesn't matter whatever platform I'm on. At some point, I will need to file my returns, and I'll have to go to the iTax platform.
Correct.
Will I find all this information from all these other platforms here?
Yes. So for the invoicing platform, what we've done, the back end, it's one database. What we've done is we've tried to diversify, so that we find the taxpayers where they are used to operating. So there are some who probably might never log into the eCitizen platform, but they are always on M-Pesa. They have their Hakamba phone. If you have your Hakamba, you can do USSD. But it's all feeding in one database, the electronic invoicing database, and from that database, that information is being drawn and being used for return filing in the iTax system.
Why so many different platforms for different services and different people?
Because of what we are trying to do is diversify. What we tried to determine is, do we draw the taxpayer from where they're used to operating? And this person, the only thing he does is receive money, send money, and then you are telling him, come and log into a KRA system, perhaps that they have to navigate through it, they have to learn it. But then they are also used to using the services that are on their phone through their mobile service provision. So why can't we borrow some of those services where they are used to doing their operations? They operate right there, but at the same time give them an opportunity to comply. So that's why we are actually really trying to diversify to make sure that everyone has a chance, a simple way to be able to come on board, so that there's no this complaint that accessing the KRA website, for example, is too complex. We cannot make it. Everyone should be able to make it where they are. If you're used to logging into the eCitizen platform, then you already have credentials. Use the same credentials, generate an invoice. There's no complication of, they say eTIMS is complicated because we have to approve on our end. The approval is actually an auto-approval. We just check the database, approve, and you continue with the invoice generation.
You said that once you log on and you've registered, and then you go to find if you then are, I want to use the word eligible, and you find that you're not there, what happens? You log off and just continue with your business, or what happens? If you get on as somebody who supplies goods, for example, and somebody wants to buy from you and you want to generate 1, 2, 3, and you find that you're not, the category for which you fall into is not there.
Okay.
You just go back to business.
So no. What the system does also, it checks first of all if you are registered. For example, if I enter my ID and I have 3 companies I've registered already, it will draw that out, and maybe it's asking you really which one do you want to generate an invoice for. But then there'll be a situation where I'm actually a new entrant and I really do need to generate this invoice, or I'm making a one-off sale of something. Then you still have an opportunity to register and still generate an invoice. So it gives you that opportunity to actually still generate the invoice, despite the fact that your business details are not there, and maybe the system does not recognize you.
Okay. Who is in this bracket? I want to look at it from the point of view of KRA, where there's the hope that, you know, as many businesses and individuals who run business then are formalized. But we also know that the majority of those who run business are not in this system.
Okay. So I'm going to still repeat. You have business income, you tick yes. You are resident, you tick yes. You are non-resident with permanent establishment, you tick yes. Now, you are in this category. However, when it comes to the issue regarding taxation, because remember I've mentioned eTIMS is not a tax. That's why I wanted to start with that today. It's just a source of information. But then when it comes to taxation now, the other tax obligations apply. For example, the provisions for individual income tax, by the time you make an income up to 24,000 shillings per month, you actually do not pay any tax. Because by the time we do the tax calculations, you do the graduation, you have the relief, all your tax is covered by the relief. So basically for someone with an income of, let's say, 288,000 per year, then for tax purposes, that person is can we say silently exempt? Basically, there's no tax to pay.
There's no tax.
Even if you make the declaration.
Because it comes down to less than 24,000.
Yes, it will.
A month.
Yes. So you there's no tax to pay. But now the provisions for eTIMS, it doesn't mean that when you're on eTIMS, then you don't file your return.
Okay, Hakamba, I guess this is the question. And maybe I framed it wrongly, but here we are and we're saying that, okay, the kiosk in the estate, who you're hoping to get information from as KRA, the person who has a fruit and vegetable store, from what our understanding is, you want as many people in this information system as possible. How are you getting, if I'm going to buy a loaf of bread, for example, they're not on, they're not recording this stuff on eTIMS, they're not there. So this is my question. Are we saying that for the people who we already know established, that whom this is for, or is it truly trying to get the wider population who is informal into the system. Because what is it? To then formalize and really just rein in on those who are already in the system. Like you said, you can find who you are because your previous engagement. But if it truly is for information on a wider level, there are hundreds of thousands of businesses that operate,
under the radar.
Basically, let me just correct you there. It's not hundreds or thousands, it's millions.
Oh, very well. Okay.
So basically, what we have in our tax, our records, people registered with PIN and who are operating businesses, we have 915,000 such entities. But from the information that we receive, for example, from the KNBS, Kenya National Bureau of Statistics, those numbers could be as big as 7 million entities that are operating below the radar, because once you don't have PIN, basically we can't see you. So you are part of the informal sector. So part of the objectives that we are trying to do is to formalize the informal sector,
to get people to register for PIN.
Yes, but what our focus is, and you can see from January, has been on those who are especially for business to business transactions, because we have this huge elephant. We can't start eating the elephant from the tail. We have to focus on where there's revenue impact for now.
Meat.
So it's open for all business entities, but our focus right now is for those ones who are facing other business entities, for purposes of making sure that we lock this space and make sure that we close the gaps, that when it comes to determination of the tax liability for various entities, even the ones who have previously onboarded on TIMS or eTIMS, we are able to close it because we can see their sales. When it comes to their purchases, largely, most of their purchases are coming from the informal sector, and we'd like to know who these are that are contributing to the purchases of these other entities.
Hakamba Wangwe is the manager in charge of eTIMS at the Kenya Revenue Authority. She's here because there are very many questions surrounding eTIMS. The KRA has put an end of March deadline for compliance with eTIMS. She'll tell us whether this one is still realistic or not. But also, we'll open up the phone lines at some point to hear your questions, your comments, your experience with eTIMS. Ask her, tell her. I'm seeing very many of them already on social media, on YouTube. People saying, okay, somebody's asking, so am I like putting every daily sales and activities plus expenses? What information are you looking for? Come on. You'll answer all those questions. One question, ask the KRA lady. So what happens with returns if they are missing costs? For example, you got a burst pipe, and you brought in a guy to come and repair, just a lomo plumber, he didn't give you an eTIMS invoice, and all those other costs that you have. At the end of the year, does that mean that you will not recognize those as my expenses?
Yes. Why we went all out to have the simplified solutions, it's scenarios like that. Because if you're having a plumber, for example, it's something that needs to be sorted out today, and the person comes and does the work, of course they are not onboarded on eTIMS, they probably don't have PIN.
Yep.
And that he's doing that work for a business entity. Previously, you would have a cash sale receipt. You would have. So because you would have the cash sale receipt that you'd put in your record, because when you're doing your income tax return, you'd need to bring in that expenditure so that you reduce your tax liability. So this plumber, as he does his work, probably it's extensive, you definitely need to add that to your expenditure. Then you have an option to get to the USSD solution, for example. What that solution does is that once that everyone has an ID at that point, once he enters his ID and of course there's that check and he doesn't have PIN, it allows him to actually, it redirects him to register for PIN. Within that space, have a PIN and also generate a tax invoice. So he would need to do that.
So I'll tell plumber, do the USSD is *222#.
Yes.
Right, I know it because I've tried it out. So go to *222#. Follow the prompts. The prompts will make him register for a PIN.
It will.
Right there and then. And then now he will generate an invoice.
Right there and then.
And I'll give him my PIN so that he shows that he's billing me.
Yes.
Unanipatia kazi mingi.
Nani huyo? Wewe ama plumber?
Me
who wants to pay the plumber.
But you see, at the end of it, you need to have a record of that transaction. You need to have that record. It's the same way that he'd have to do the cash sale receipt and capture your details. You'd have to give him your details.
So this is a roundabout way of KRA getting people onto getting their PINs.
Why do I need to have the transaction? I think that's important that folks want to understand.
Okay.
Why is it important for me to have a transaction that I paid the plumber to come fix something in my house? Why do I need to have
here's
that?
how it works. We have two major tax heads that we can talk about. We have VAT.
Yep.
VAT, whenever someone is filing their return, we talk about the output side of the VAT return, where someone is declaring the sale. And then we have the input side of the VAT return, where someone says, this is the expenses I incurred and was charged VAT in the course of my business.
Yes.
So the principles are like this. As much as people feel that the taxman is unfair, what we do for VAT is we tell you, fine, you incurred these expenses and you charged this much VAT from the people who you made a sale to. Can you give us the balance? You offset your expenses so that anytime in your course of your business, we are saying you don't have to incur VAT in the process of you also collecting VAT on our behalf. We tell you, just offset the expenses. What is the balance? Give us. If you're running a credit balance, no, don't worry, we'll continue running it like that. At the point where you have something to pay, the credit balance will actually take care of that for you. So for us to be able to ascertain this, we want to be sure that since this is like an incentive you've been given, then we want to make sure that the calculation of that incentive is accurate. So we don't want to also give you that space and also experience gaps in that we have inflated input tax claims so that we end up losing revenue in the process. So that's VAT. Income tax. Income tax, you declare your turnover, you declare your sales, and then you bring in your purchases or cost of sales, basically. So the tax comes from, again, your profit.
Net.
But from the profit is where the tax calculation begins. But then we're also saying that you can offset your expenses so that by the time you are determining your profit, now we know from that profit is how much tax or tax liability is due. But for us to ascertain that you calculated the correct profit, we are checking both your sales, which is what you're transmitting to us, but any purchases that you have made, we need to make sure that they've been calculated accurately, and therefore it means the profit is accurately determined.
Every expense, I need to document it.
You need to document.
And previously, I was documenting those expenses with simple receipts. So I have a cash payment voucher, that plumber would have checked off there. Sign up, ati nimekulipa 5,000 shillings, kunitengenezea pipe. And then later in the year would have said, well, I have incurred 100,000 shillings worth of plumbing and other related expenses. Now KRA is saying, I want to believe that is true.
Yes.
By seeing who exactly you paid for plumbing jobs. And that is if the plumber had given me an invoice that is reflecting in your system.
Now you're twisting for the sake of the taxpayer. What we want to see from you is that the expenses were actually incurred. So we don't have fictitious expenses.
For
no,
you
it's
to
not
know
the
that they
same
were
thing.
actually incurred,
Now on the other side,
the plumber has to have told you, I was paid. I billed Eric.
Truly, I did the service for Eric, and they paid me, and therefore, for Eric, allow him this expenditure. But then now, on the other side, of it, we want to take an ideal situation where this plumber, fine, he gives you the receipt, and when he comes to filing his return, he'll also be able to have that as his sales.
As an income.
But in the event that this is a person who has been filing nil returns, and it has happened for VAT, sure, we are coming to that discussion, where you file nil returns, you forget that you issued invoices. So the system will just kindly remind you that, remember, there was an invoice you gave to Eric. Please declare that invoice.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So go ahead.
So it really is a check system.
Yes.
That's what it is, actually.
Yes.
It's to ensure that whatever it is that you are saying you did or did not earn can then be verified on eTIMS. That's what it is.
That is correct.
Right?
Yes.
So with what I am filing, I guess you can just jump into that right now. With what I'm filing, and if you do then file nil returns, and no one has put in an invoice or put in a receipt for payment that you may have paid or made, then your returns remain nil, and then there will be no query from KRA. Is it not?
Yes, if there's no one who has put in a receipt, or you yourself has not put in a receipt, then in that case, then from the side of KRA, when you are filing your return, of course that trace might not be there. But remember, the people you do business with, neither can they claim their expenditure. So if it so happens that you are not issuing tax invoices, then if you're doing business with for serious business entities, they would like to onboard, because then the other person won't give you business, because if I'm going to lose on tax, because remember, if for example you do the transaction with the plumber and maybe he charges you 7,000 and he himself does not give you an electronic tax invoice, neither does he file the return, then that tax, your profit will go up, because that tax is on you.
Okay, you will not recognize that.
Yeah, we will not recognize it.
Can we let's because and for the purposes of many people who are listening this morning and own a small business and really do not understand what you're saying here. I own a salon. Let's just give an example, okay? I own a salon. I have maybe 5 stations. I am supplied with shampoo, conditioner, whatever. Yeah? Okay. Oh my God, I need to see you later. And then I have employees, 8 of them, whatever, okay? But I'm supplied with all of these things. And then they even bring water, they bring me towels. What you're saying essentially is that for each of these things that I am supplied, there must be the relevant documentation saying, yes, we brought shampoo to Ndu Salon on the 16th of every month in the year 2024. We charged her 8,000 shillings. She paid us.
And here is the record.
And here is the record that she paid us. What you're asking is that as I am doing my reconciliations, it must be in the eTIMS that, yes, actually, they brought me shampoo. I paid. Here is the receipt. This is how it was done. They brought me nail stuff. Here's the receipt. This is how it was done.
Here's the invoice.
Here's the invoice, rather. They've invoiced me. I actually paid them. I also then issued, they also then issued me a receipt for the payment that I have made.
And then Hakamba came to the salon.
Yeah.
Okay.
On one lowly Tuesday afternoon in March.
And she did this, the other, right? I billed her. Here is her invoice. Here is my invoice to her.
Let's make it practical, Eric.
For it to be a sale, because you're a salon and you've now done Hakamba, you need to bill.
Hang on. So Hakamba's come in, she's done her hair, she's done her nails, she's done her facial, right? I have billed her 10,000 shillings. Hey, what a nice salon this is. I've billed her 10,000 shillings.
That's cheap, or is that a lot?
Hey, she's done her hair, her nails and everything.
And it's Hakamba.
No, it's not enough.
Okay.
These KRA fellows.
So 25k.
So 25,000 shillings. She's come for full service, everything that day, right? You pay your 25,000 bob, okay? I give Hakamba
an
eTIMS invoice, right?
Yes, correct.
At the end of your service, here's your invoices of what you owe. You pay via M-Pesa, cash, whatever, and then I issue you with a receipt. All of that must be in the system. Now you, Hakamba, you've done your thing. You're going for lunch, whatever. You don't put that information anywhere. I mean, goodness, I've done my hair. I'm going. Does that affect me in any way? Because I understand where it comes as the business, because I have a PIN, I can operate, whatever. I have to put all of these things in the system. How does that affect me if you have come to my service, my salon, but then you don't put in this 25,000 bob that you spent on March 26th?
Okay, if you see, what happens is that what you're taking care of is the expenses feeding into the business. And you've seen this is a very good salon because they've actually accounted for all the supplies, the shampoo and everything. So they have receipts, eTIMS receipts for all those supplies. as I come in as Hakamba, I'm an end consumer.
Yeah.
I'm not a business entity.
Okay.
So for me, I have nowhere to get that reprieve, because when you give me the receipt from Ndu Saloon, if you give me the receipt, it ends there.
You will not claim it.
I cannot claim it.
Yeah, okay.
So you can imagine this incentive is only available to business entities. I wish we could, as unemployment income, bring in also those expenses. You can't.
Okay, let's change
You
it.
cannot.
Let me ask you this. Spice FM
But
is
then,
sending all their
hold
people
on,
to
before we move on.
Yeah.
Is it a requirement that Ndu Salon issues the eTIMS invoice to the end user?
To the end user.
Yes, correct. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
For
I
you
have
to register
you
that
need-
as a sale,
As a sale, you register it as a sale.
you must issue the eTIMS invoice to Hakamba.
The only thing
Now,
I
the
don't,
question
I
that
don't
Ndu,
claim.
if I understand your question, and I think, is how will there'll be no reconciliation. As long as I've generated an invoice for 25,000 shillings, KRA considers that a sale.
Yeah.
Yes.
Whether Hakamba told me, usijali, welete to invoice, sintakulipa, pays or not,
It's showing in the thing
That's
that
a
it's
sale.
the sale.
You see,
Because I must generate it.
the eTIMS.
you see, if you're operating in a situation where, of course, you trust me, I come repeatedly, and maybe I pay you at the end of the month after all the services. For generation of invoices, is not based on the relationship of the business entity.
KRA doesn't care if we're friends.
What happens is that whether you've earned it or it's accrued, meaning you'll get a payment at a later date, then you generate the invoice. If it so happens that Hakamba, after that a nice service of 25,000, moves on to another salon because I'm going to pull that one again, then what you can do is you can now raise a credit note because you did not receive the amount that you had actually generated from the invoice.
Okay.
So basically you're just looking at the traceability of that transaction end to end.
So if you're dealing with business, the same business, because it does happen, whereby you're then providing a service, this same salon is providing a service for Spice FM people who come and do the show, whatever, we will do your hair every day, and then you bill us. We bill you at the end of the month to pay us. Does that change?
Again, the expenses, remember, it's expenses that go towards further runs of business. There's some businesses, I think, maybe if it's a modeling agency, I guess, maybe expenses from a salon would hold.
Okay.
But for an entity like yours, for example, if you're sent out in the field and the employer says, I'll pay for your lunch because you've gone out to work. If you have your employees going out for lunch in such areas, please ask them to get an eTIMS receipt, because when you're bringing it to your return and bringing it as an expense towards maintaining your employees when they are working, then they need to be eTIMS receipts.
I want to ask about services. You said for those that are offering services and not necessarily selling goods, you have put them in the etims.go.ke. And this would include accountants, consultants, like communications consultants such as ourselves. You've put in doctors and such, right? Now, doctors came out with a statement the other day and they were like, sasa kama shida ni kubwa hii Kenya, inaanza KRA. I'm going to read some excerpts of this. It's a very long statement that they went on and on and on, and it was signed by the president of the Kenya Medical Association, Dr. Simon Kigondu. And what he was saying is that this requirement that a doctor, when I go to see a doctor in a doctor's consultancy, the doctor should bill me. There's the same way Ndu Salon billing Hakamba is the same way that Dr. Kigondu will bill Eric for coming to see him. What details is Dr. Kigondu putting there in terms of, so what service did you offer? Is that saying that Dr. Kigondu is now going to be breaching doctor-patient confidentiality when he starts telling KRA, unajua Eric amekuja kwangu mara 3 hii mwezi na nimempatia hii dawa na hii dawa na hii. Unajua hii dawa, unajua ni ya kutreat nini? Sio unajua. Is that breaching that confidentiality?
Okay.
And that's one of the questions that they're raising as doctor and saying, look, by saying that we must do this, you are basically just going overboard.
Okay. That's a good concern. Honestly, with all of us being patients at one point or the other, or future patients. It's something that we should all be concerned about. And maybe at this point to thank the doctors, because what happened is that once they realized the implementation is coming, we've had good engagements with them, because they have been interested in how the eTIMS solution is going to work for their sector. Maybe one clarification I'm going to make, that on the eTIMS platform, the doctors are largely on the online portal. However, you know that most medical facilities are coupled with the pharmacy. So you'll find that they might be on the client solutions or on the system-to-system integration. But for those who are just strictly like clinics and maybe the pharmacies the next door, which might not be related to them, then they can be on the online platform. And they can also use the simplified solutions depending on how big or how small they are. So to answer that, basically what we normally do, I want to share something I had to carry. I just want to give it to you, and then you tell me where they've captured the details of the patient.
What's that? Wacha tuone. So what is this? This is an eTIMS invoice. Of course, you've blacked out the details.
It was the details of the seller.
Of the details of the seller.
Yes.
Because now here we'll have the PIN and everything and the email of the seller and all. Yeah. Now, it says item code. It has a long one, CG1BGV0001. Item description, diclofenac. Quantity and price by 300, 16% rate. Amount exclusive of tax, 517.24. Tax amount, 82.7. Amount inclusive of tax, 600. And then, so there are 3 items here that have been sold: diclofenac, Panadol, and silver. And each of them has its amount. Total amount, 2,000.
There's an area where we have KRA PIN.
So, KRA PIN is up there. Right? Invoice to... so, invoice number this...
Okay.
On one side.
That's okay. Yeah.
So there's an invoice number, and then there's invoice to, and these are the details of the patient.
The patient should be the details of the patient.
And what is this?
That's the seller.
These are the details of the seller,
so that someone
of the
doesn't
particular
see
medical
their invoice
practitioner.
here. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this is how it would look like.
Yeah.
And then this is now the items.
Yeah.
And this is what now the doctor would be putting in, or the pharmacist.
Yes, they will be putting in that. But just coming back to where we have the KRA PIN and name. Now, you and I are going to medical facilities, and we basically, the same example of salons applies.
Yeah.
And I don't have an intention of claiming it or putting it anywhere as an expenditure. What I'm trying to demonstrate there is that you've seen KRA PIN and name is actually not there. But I was able to generate, or the person was able to generate the invoice.
I see.
Yeah.
So yeah,
it's
this
blank.
is blank.
Yeah, it's blank.
So this is blank by design.
By design. Yes, by design, so that what we are interested in is that information that leads to determination of the tax liability.
Okay.
Not on the details of who. Sasa hui ni nani
Are you saying that the doctor will not put these details in?
They don't have to. That's why I'm giving an example. We'll have this other person who will go to a medical facility, but definitely they would like to claim that expenditure in their income tax return.
Okay.
Now, you see, the identifier for any tax transaction is the PIN. And for you to get that credit, your PIN needs to be captured, so that we know that you did not just bring your whole family for treatment here and there, or maybe even your extended family, and you're bringing all those into the income tax return as your expenditure when it comes to medical services. So when it comes to now this component of taxpayers who must capture their PIN for purposes of their own determination of the tax liability, remember, I have to offer to give you the PIN. And because I'm offering, then it's actually that I'm consenting so that my tax liability can go down. And in this case now, what kicks in is this. When it comes to the issue of data protection, the Data Protection Act is very huge on the issue of confidentiality, even for authorized persons who by nature of their work, might have access to this information. Moving to the KRA Acts, the Tax Procedures Act, the KRA officers in their course of business have access to information, but then also are bound by the confidentiality clause. And we've been receiving, once again, this is eTIMS, that someone is giving their own PIN.
Yeah.
But then they have been giving these receipts for purposes of reducing their medical lab expenditures.
Yeah.
So you consent to give the information. On our end, we are bound by the confidentiality clause, and you've not had us out there, even without eTIMS, talking about people's medical histories.
Yet are you saying you already have access?
We already have access to this information. So eTIMS is different because now it's transmitted, I guess, but we have access to this information.
Okay. Time for the news. It's already 9 a.m. It's a time that's running really fast. In the next hour, we open the phone lines. Engage with Hakamba Wangwe. She is the senior manager in charge, Chief
It's okay.
Chief Manager in charge of eTIMS at the Kenya Revenue Authority. KRA wants all of us to get onto eTIMS in one form or the other, whether through the etims.go.ke, through the eCitizen platform. They'll soon be launching the eTIMS app, or through the USSD code *222#. Are you prepared? We'll pick your calls after this.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.